Warriors have to be at peak fitness to do their job properly, whatever the period in history we're talking about. This is a modern-day British Army 24-hour ration pack, scientifically designed to keep the fighting person fit when they're in the field. How does it compare to what might have been eaten by a medieval knight? We have been trudging through the mud and we've ended up at a modest inn, and we are going to have a look at what might be called peasant food. I have with me a fantastic historian called Chris, who knows all about the sort of food of the period. We've got what looks quite simple sort of set of things here. Do you want to sort of go through them and explain? It looks like bread.
Absolutely, yes. Bread was actually a distinguisher of status in the Middle Ages, and
Right.
This is a lower end bread. It's made with barley flour and with rye.
It's sort of brown coloured, which sort of in our era sort of is posh bread, isn't
Absolutely,
it?
it's entirely the opposite way round.
Right.
In the Middle Ages, the browner your bread, the poorer you were.
Right, interesting. That's rather lovely. I'd like that, and I probably paid more at the supermarket for it.
Absolutely.
But back then...
But back then, this is the food of the peasant,
Right.
because there's more effort that goes into producing white flour.
Right,
White
I
flour
see.
is just brown flour that's been sieved and all the goodness taken out of it.
Right, okay. So bread, and this...
We have ale in the cup.
Fantastic. So you could drink booze at at meals, or...
Yes, most people drank beer. There is a popular misconception that nobody drank water in the Middle Ages. This is not actually true. If you had a good source of water, you would drink water.
Right.
If you didn't, you would drink beer, and you might start drinking beer from the age of about 5.
Is it similar to the beer we had today, or did it vary hugely, presumably?
It was
from place to place?
It was very regional. It would
Right.
depend on the quality of your barley, your hops.
I also noticed you had fish there, and that looks like salmon to me, chunky steaks of salmon.
It is indeed salmon, yes. Salmon in the Middle Ages was peasant food because it was freely available in rivers.
So yet again, a kind of reversal of what we expect. So salmon today is very expensive. Those are probably quite expensive chunks of salmon. And we have brown bread, we have booze, beer, and we've got salmon. So
Yes.
that's actually seems like quite a hearty meal.
It's quite nice, yes.
And you've got some little bit of greenery and things
Yeah,
here. What were you going to do with this?
Well, you're going to do this.
Okay.
This is your hard work for them. You're going to have to earn your supper. This is actually sorrel that I picked from my garden yesterday.
Right.
And you're going to grind it up. There's some salt in there, and you're going to grind it.
Yes.
And then we're going to strain it through this piece of linen cloth, and that is sorrel sauce.
Sorrel
From
sauce.
an absolutely genuine medieval recipe.
You had to work for your food in the medieval times. We've gone back to basic ingredients, fish from the river, bread, a lot more effort gone into making the bread, and you've got me pounding vegetables from the garden.
I also have, cooking away on the fire, a peas pottage. Pottage is anything that's cooked in a pot.
Right, so you're really describing what you're doing, like
Yes.
frying, so it's potting it.
So,
And peas as in peas?
peas, garden
And
peas, with some
Mixed with anything? Or?
with some stock and some herbs. It's
Brilliant.
basically medieval mushy peas.
Right, fantastic. And you're cooking on, it's not an open fire as such, it's coals, isn't it? So
It
it's
is,
not really flames.
No, it's charcoal. One of the things that you don't want to be doing, even if you're cooking over wood, is having a blazing fire because you haven't got the heat.
So again, when we see on film and TV, we see a roaring fire and a pot over it. It's in fact
Wrong, I'm
completely
afraid.
wrong. You burn yourself and it's not very hot. I have to say, it seems to be cooking very efficiently, actually.
It is remarkably quick.
Yeah.
It's more like using an auger.
Right.
So you've got your hot oven and your cooler oven, and you move things about depending on what you want to do with them.
So arguably, those people with nice country houses with augers are in fact
medieval
peasants.
And they're eating their lovely
And we're eating our lovely brown bread,
and-
artisan bread, which is peasant bread.
Yes.
So sometimes we get this impression from film and TV that peasants were sort of eating slop and mud. And of course, they had very physical lives. So they must have actually consumed a reasonable number of calories,
Yeah.
and good food was not kind of a complete stranger to...
No, absolutely not.
This status.
The staples for the average peasant working in the field would have been bread, beer and bacon.
Bread, beer and bacon.
Most people reared a pig behind their house.
Right, because pigs eat a lot of waste.
Yes, and the pig would have been slaughtered at the beginning of the winter, possibly.
So you didn't keep it over the winter,
No.
you just, right.
Because then you have to feed it over the winter.
Right.
You slaughter it.
And salt it
and
or smoke
salt
it or...
smoke bits of it to make the bacon.
Right.
In most medieval peasant houses, you'd probably have a hook hanging above the fireplace, which is where you'd smoke your bacon.
That's fascinating. Yeah. So they didn't waste even the smoke from
Nope.
the fire. That was used.
Absolutely, and they didn't waste anything of the pig either. They'd use the blood to make things like black puddings, and they'd use the intestines as sausage casings, so nothing would have been wasted.
Wonderful.
Could you pass the plate?
Which one?
Actually, you should probably put it on the bread as the trencher.
Right, so that would be effectively your plate.
Okay.
That looks fantastic.
We haven't done the sauce.
What do you want me to do? Just put that in there?
So if you put it in there.
Right.
And then you'll probably need to squeeze it over some of the salmon. Not very much sorrel. I don't think it's going to make a lot of sauce.
Right, so I'll sort of... And this should go...
Squeeze it.
There's actually quite a lot coming out. It's much more than I thought there would be.
Yes, me too. So this is experimental archaeology.
And that's wonderful.
And we have here our peas pottage. Mushy peas.
This looks... You could serve this up in a really expensive restaurant in London. Relatively quickly, we've prepared what actually looks like a superb and very, very tasty meal. We've got salmon, we've got peas pottage, we've got bread, we've got beer. A lot of people think that peasants would have eaten grey, boring food. Well, I suppose in famines they'd have eaten whatever they had.
Yes.
But broadly speaking, this is the sort of thing that you would have eaten. And quite frankly, I'm very impressed. That's delicious.
Well done.
Absolutely delicious. In fact, I'm more impressed now because it's so simple. The sorrel has worked incredibly well with the fish. The peas pottage is absolutely lovely. Obviously, a lot of this food goes into working. You're going to be working in the fields, doing a lot more physical things, shifting and carrying stuff, walking everywhere. This is very warming, quite hearty. And I imagine you could do a morning's work with this.
Well, this would actually be your midday meal. Eating in the Middle Ages was you would have breakfast, which would be bread and ale. Then you would stop work in the middle of the day and have the main meal of the day, which is quite important at this time of year because by the time you come in the evening, it's dark.
Right.
And again, you'd probably have something like bread and cheese or bread and some ham. You'd have a cold meal. So you eat your main meal in the middle of the day when you can see what you're eating.
Right. And then you've got you've done half a day's work.
Yes.
Fill yourself up, fill your petrol tank filled with lovely food, rest a little bit, then go back out and do what you're doing. Because they live very external lives.
They did. Yes.
Well, I have to say, if nothing else about peasant food, it's very, very tasty and very, very filling. It's absolutely delightful. While I'm finishing this absolutely lovely peasant food, don't forget to like and subscribe and use the notification button as well, and follow us so that you can see what we're going to be preparing next week.